Welcome back to the Beauty Lab podcast. I'm your host, Velia, and this is my co-host, Monina. And today we're going to be talking again about Brazilian waxing. So we've covered this topic a couple of times now, but we still get tons of questions about Brazilian waxing, mostly from people who have never done it and they're really curious. So we're going to go through the basics of Brazilian waxing. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Welcome to the Beauty Lab podcast, your drive time resource for all things beauty, health, and wellness. We're your hosts and favorite beauty nerds, Monina and Velia.
Join us as we debunk myths, explore the latest trends, and dive deep into the science behind your favorite products. We'll interview industry experts and answer your burning beauty questions in 30 minutes or less.
Okay, so Monina, first question would be, what exactly is a Brazilian wax?
All right, so for those of you who've never had a Brazilian waxing, even when you come to see me for the first time, I always do what I call definition of terms, because I feel like from one esthetician to another, their example or their definition of a Brazilian can be totally different.
That's true.
From what I consider. So this is what I've been taught. If you just want the hair on the bikini line to be removed, that's called a bikini, because you're literally removing hair from like whatever you can see outside the bikini line, right? Makes sense. Then the next option would be you can go in a little bit further, or you can leave that what they call like a little triangle or a landing strip, or you can just remove all of it. That's called a full bikini. Now, the difference between a full bikini and a Brazilian is as soon as we go into the labial folds or the butt area, now you're in Brazilian territory.
Okay. You've officially entered Brazil.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't know really why it's called a Brazilian.
Because Brazilians are super sexy. They're always like, smooth. Everything's smooth. Smooth hair, smooth skin.
Maybe that's what it is. Okay, I'll take it. So that's basically when you come to see me, that's what I consider a Brazilian. So as soon as we go into those two designated areas, it now officially becomes a Brazilian.
Okay.
Yeah. And the reason why you would want to do a Brazilian, a couple of things, is that it is smoother. We just talked about that, as opposed to like shaving and like the next day you've either got razor burns or the growth again starts to come back, so it's less smooth. The smoothness does last a lot longer than using a razor, that's for sure. And then you also, I've been told, you get less ingrowns. So if you're prone to ingrowns, waxing usually helps with that as well.
Okay, so now that we know what a Brazilian wax is, how does one prepare for their very first Brazilian wax?
Okay, awesome. This is a great question. To get the best result and the best experience, there are a couple of things you want to do in preparation for it. So first thing is you want the hair to be at least a 1/4 inch long. And if you don't know what that is, it's usually the size of a grain of rice. So that's about how long, because you need it to be that long in order for the wax to even grab onto it, okay? If it's shorter than that, you're kind of wasting your time and you're not gonna really get anything to come up. So at least a 1/4 inch. And then if you do decide, or let's say you shaved because you weren't planning to do a Brazilian, but now you want to, well, I need you to have at least 2 to 3 weeks worth of hair growth. 2 is really the minimum, I feel like, unless your hair grows really fast, but 2 to 3 weeks worth of growth, you'll have that 1/4 inch that we're looking for. Another good tip to prepare is you want to exfoliate gently the area that you're going to be waxing. And this really helps to remove the dead skin, so that when we do the wax, we're not just removing dead skin and then the hair is still intact. So to get like the smoothest possible finish, doing that exfoliating, 24 to 48 hours before is really, really helpful. Nothing like really abrasive though, like just a gentle exfoliation. Like I'm talking, take a washcloth or a loofah sponge and just kind of gently exfoliate. That's really helpful. Just remove that top layer of dead skin. The next thing you want to do is you want to be very hydrated. because we find that when the skin is dehydrated, you're a little bit more prone to irritation and it becomes a little more painful.
Okay.
So you want to try to hydrate really well before you come in. And we also ask that you shower. Hygiene is super important. So if you can shower before you come to the appointment, that's also really helpful. And it does make the experience a lot better too. And then I always suggest you want to wear really loose, breathable, comfortable clothing, because afterwards you just don't want any tight and causing friction against the skin, because that's when you then become a lot more irritated after the waxing. And then a couple of things, so that's how to prepare. Now, a couple of things you want to maybe avoid right before the waxing is you definitely don't want to tan 24 to 48 hours before. If it was like a week before, that's totally fine. Because again, after tanning, your skin is a lot more sensitive. So we want to avoid anything that's going to make the skin more sensitive before you come in for a Brazilian. And then the other thing is you don't want to shave. And I have, believe it or not, I've had clients that they come in and they're like ready for the Brazilian, and it's like, there's like nothing there. And I'm like, when did you shave last? And they're like, 2 or 3 days ago. Oh. And I'm like, there's just not enough. So then we have to reschedule it. So yeah, just keep that in mind, guys. Please don't shave before you come in, because really nothing's going to come up. And then it's just a totally waste of time of you coming in. So you want to avoid that. And then, like I said earlier, you want to avoid any type of like active acids or retinols, anything that's going to thin the skin out or really cause the skin to be a lot more sensitive. Most people don't put retinols in the area, but there are some creams that have retinols for pigmentation, because people do get pigmentation in that area.
Okay.
So you want to avoid using that, I'd say even 48 hours before, because you just don't want the skin to be thinned out any more than it needs to. Because actually that's what we're doing, right? When we're waxing, we're actually exfoliating, and then literally you're thinning out the skin. So you don't want to put a retinol or anything like that beforehand. It's going to be really, really uncomfortable, trust me. And then also avoid caffeine and alcohol, because that also makes your skin a lot more sensitive. I mean, not everybody, but just to be on the safe side, like I would avoid too much caffeine or alcohol the day of.
Okay.
Would be really, really helpful for, especially if it's your first time, because you don't know just how painful or what your pain tolerance is, right? Everyone's pain tolerance is so different. And if you're really nervous about the pain, I would suggest booking it a week after your period. So if you're kind of regular and try to book it out so that it's a week after your period, because what we find is right before your period, and of course during your period, you're a lot more sensitive to the wax as well. So just a couple of things to how to prepare and then what to avoid.
Okay, so speaking of pain,
Okay.
what should we expect as far as how painful this process is? And I know that everyone has a different pain tolerance, but generally speaking, let's say it's your first time ever doing a Brazilian. Talk about the pain.
Okay, so obviously I'm not going to say it's painless, because I'd be lying to you, because essentially what we're doing is we're grabbing the hair and we're pulling. So anytime you pull something off of your skin, like a Band-Aid or something like that, that's what I kind of make it equivalent to. It's like pulling a Band-Aid off of your skin. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but again, everyone has a different pain tolerance. So I would say the first time you come into wax will probably be the worst. Right? Because number one, it's the anticipation. And then number two, it's an area you most likely have never touched before, right? Let alone put some hot thing on there and then rip it off, right? So yeah, your first time is always going to be the worst. But again, like I tell people, it's like a nanosecond of uncomfortableness, right? Because you're ripping it. And I tell people, if it was painful the entire time, I don't think people would ever come back. It's just that split second that you lift and you're like, and you take a breath, you're like, okay.
That's true.
I'm okay. Yeah.
It's
and
true.
It's the anticipation too. I think the anticipation is almost worse than the actual pulling. So yeah, so there's that. So if you can do whatever you can to just make sure that your skin is not super sensitive. And then also, if it's your first time, as far as how long the appointment is, I'd say no more than 30 Usually 15 to 30 minutes. Would you say about 15 to 30?
Yeah.
No more than that. I don't think I've ever gone past 30 minutes. Even when I was first starting, it really wasn't. Well, maybe when I was first starting because I was nervous. But now it's like, 15, 20 minutes, I feel like tops now, is how long the appointment usually lasts. So just maybe a quick recap on a couple of things to help minimize the discomfort. You want to hydrate, so you want to drink lots of water. You want to avoid the caffeine and the alcohol. You could also, I would say 30 to 45 minutes before, you can take like a Tylenol or an ibuprofen because that'll help with like the post-inflammation that you might experience. So that really helps. If you're super worried about, and like maybe you can't really handle pain, I would suggest go and buy over-the-counter lidocaine. It usually has 4%, but if you need something stronger, you can reach out to your esthetician. I usually carry a 5% lidocaine. Most people say the 4% is enough. Now, a tip for that is you want to put it on at least 30 to 45 minutes before. And the other thing is you want to put a good amount in the area. And then you don't want to put your underwear on right away. You want the product to really get saturated and melt into the skin before you put your underwear on. So yeah, I would highly recommend that if you know that you have a low pain tolerance. That really helps too. So
I know one thing, if I may add, that sometimes when you're doing my Brazilian, when I'm really sensitive because maybe I didn't time it well, and I am closer to my period or whatever, and I'll ask you to take smaller sections.
yes.
And that really helps me.
Yes.
So that might be something, because a lot of times the esthetician might just, especially if you're going somewhere like a European wax center, they're on a very small time window.
Yeah.
They try to put as much wax on there as possible and then take a really big strip of it off because it's faster. And that's when you're like, ah! So I would recommend that maybe your very first Brazilian isn't at a place that's really quick and like in and out, kind of like that.
Yeah.
That's a good place for maintenance.
Yeah.
But if you're worried or nervous about pain, go to someone that someone else has recommended to you who's like gonna give you an extra 15 minutes of their time.
And the other thing too is if you're going to them for the first time, maybe they were either recommended or you're just looking for an esthetician, look for someone who does Brazilians. Just because you're an esthetician doesn't necessarily mean that you can do Brazilians or that you're good at it, and you know how to do exactly what you said. Like you can minimize the pain by making the strips a lot smaller. And to go to an experienced esthetician who's been doing Brazilian for a while. And then also what I noticed in the years that I've done waxing, especially Brazilian, is to make sure that they actually use something called a hard wax.
Oh yeah.
And so that does make a difference because in the past, before I was taught on hard wax, we just use a normal wax, which is kind of like, for most of you see in like the honey wax or something like that you put on the skin, and then you push down on the skin, but then you have to remove it with a piece of paper or
Muslin.
like a muslin, yeah. And so that is called a soft wax, and that means that you have to use a muslin or a strip to remove it. And what I found when it comes to Brazilians especially is that because we're spreading that soft wax on the skin and then we're putting the paper and then pushing the paper down, it's grabbing the hair, but it's also grabbing the skin. And now you really do feel like you're ripping like a Band-Aid off. Whereas with hard wax, that is a specific technology. So the one that I use is called Baratin. So if you can find an esthetician who uses Baratin, their formulation is a little different than some other hard wax out there. And what I was taught was it's because the hard wax goes on, but it doesn't grab the skin, it shrink wraps around the hair. So then when you pull, you're really just pulling the hair and you're not gathering the skin, because I've heard nightmare stories, right, of people saying, my skin got lifted off, or I got so irritated because it felt like my skin was getting ripped. So I would definitely use a hard wax to prevent that scenario from happening. And again, like I said, specifically Baratin, because their formulation shrink wraps around the hair and then leaves the skin a little bit more intact. So that's definitely a good tip for you guys if you're doing Brazilian, and definitely if you're doing it for the first time. Yeah.
Okay, Awesome. Can you go through the actual process of the Brazilian wax, start to finish?
Sure. It's a great question because if you've never done it, you have no idea what to expect. And I feel like for first timers, usually the unknown is a lot more scary than the actual process. So when you come to see me and we do a consultation, I try to find out a little bit about, like, have you been using retinols? Like all the things we just talked about. I want to make sure that you're well aware of everything that could possibly make your skin a lot more sensitive. We talk about contraindications, all that kind of stuff. So we do the consultation first, do the definition of term to make sure they really are interested in a Brazilian. Because I have had clients that thought a full bikini was a Brazilian. So make sure you tell your esthetician that you definitely want the Brazilian, or if you don't want the Brazilian, please let them know that as well. So that's all during the consultation. Then you you just disrobe, and then you lay on the table. And hygiene is so super important. So obviously everything's been cleansed and sanitized. Sometimes an esthetician will put paper on the bed as well. That's the other thing, is you really want to go to an establishment that really follows those strict hygiene protocols, especially after COVID and things like that. You don't want to spread things around. But anyway, so that would be the next step. And then you lay down and we tell you to do butterfly. Because I think people, that's the first thing they wonder is like, how am I supposed to sit there? So you lay on your back and you do what we call butterfly, where you put the bottoms of your feet together and then your knees are out to the side. Now, I want to remind you guys that your esthetician does this all day long.
Yes.
To us, it's just another body part, so there's really no reason for you to be embarrassed. So everyone's in the same boat. Don't even worry about it. Okay, and then the next thing is I would do like a quick cleanse. Like I use like a lavender cleanse. We wipe the area down. And then I do use a tiny bit of a prep oil. Again, if you are sensitive to certain oils, essential oils, please let your esthetician know that. Because I do have a handful of clients that even though this oil is made specifically for waxing purposes, they just can't do oils. It just irritates their skin, which is totally fine. Just let your esthetician know. But when you come to me, I cleanse, I do the oil prep. It just gives like a barrier between the wax and your skin. That makes it a little less painful as well, is what I've really noticed. And then we take the wax, the hard wax, we dip into our container. And again, for hygiene purposes, we dip in one time, we apply the strip to the area, we throw that away. We don't reuse our sticks. So just want to let you know, keep an eye on that as well. Because believe it or not, back in the day, people did use that. I mean, they would dip back in because they're like, oh, it's hot, nothing is living, or, can't cross-contaminate, but no, that's not true. Make sure they're not double dipping is what we call it. So then we apply the wax, and it's called a hard wax because it goes on just like a regular soft wax, but then it cools and it literally hardens, and then we pull it off. Again, you could put smaller strips if you ask them to, just for more comfort. And then after that, we examine, make sure we got all the hair. Sometimes I'll tweeze, maybe the hair growth in certain areas just didn't grow long enough, and so there's little pieces of hair left. We may tweeze that if you really want to. I want to, just because I want it to be nice and clean and smooth as much as possible. And then afterwards, because your skin can be a little bit irritated, it might be a little bit red or pink, so I then follow up with another essential oil, a different post-wax oil. It's really calming and soothing, and then I follow up with a little bit of a soothing cream, which actually helps the redness to go away. And if there's like any bumps or anything, that seems to like really calm the skin a lot afterwards. So then that is basically the entire process. And then once you're done, you put on your nice loose clothing and you're off and out the door.
And I know, like, when Monina's doing mine, we're just chatting the whole time. So a lot of times your esthetician will like try to make small talk with you while you're getting your wax done, so you aren't paying attention to maybe the anticipation of pain.
Yeah. But communicate with your esthetician, because I do have some clients that are like, can you count to 3? So they can brace themselves. And then I have other clients.
That's me.
Yeah, and then I have another client. She's like, please don't count, because I just don't want to know. Just pull it, So communicate that with your esthetician as well.
Yeah. I like to do like breathing exercises.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, just tell me before you do. She's like, okay, 1, 2, 3. I'm like,
deep breath in.
Yeah,
rip.
deep breath in. And it's fine. And she's right. It hurts for 1 second. It hurts during the pull. Mm-hmm. If you literally count to 3, by 2, it doesn't hurt anymore.
You're done. As soon as we pull it, you've already forgotten about it.
There's no pain afterwards there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
not
what
in
I'm
my
saying.
experience.
If it was this lingering pain, I don't think people would ever want to come back.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, we do have 1 or 2 more questions maybe for you, but before we get to those, I just wanted to take a second and thank you all for watching and listening every week. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't already, subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you're listening, please download our episodes. It really helps our show. Thank you so, so much. Now that we know the process, we know what to expect with pain, what happens afterwards? What do we do when we're all done? What is post-care?
Yeah, great. I'm glad you asked this question, because the post-wax instructions, or the aftercare, is just as important as preparing for the wax. So a couple of things. The first 24 to 48 hours, you want to avoid a couple of things. So number 1, any type of hot tub, swimming pool, saunas, cold plunges, anything extreme hot or cold, or a chlorinated pool, because you have to remember we just pulled the hair and we literally just exfoliated that whole area. So you've got kind of open pores. So the last thing I want you to do is to jump into a chlorinated pool or something extremely hot or cold. That will cause a lot of irritation and even cause some inflammation and then possible ingrown hairs. Mm-hmm. The other thing is you want to avoid any kind of friction. So that's why we say come with really loose, breathable clothing, because even just having your underwear rub up against that area you're walking can cause friction, and then it'll cause inflammation and an ingrown hair and stuff like that. So the last thing you want to do is go to a spin cycling class or go mountain biking, because that or even jogging, because the extreme hot and the sweat and then that friction against the skin is going to be super, super irritating. And I mean, you just don't do it. 24 hours. You can go back to all your normal stuff after 24 hours. And definitely, no hot yoga or any type of intense workout.
Yeah, that's bad.
All of that before you come in. And then no heavy oils or really, really fragranced products like lotions and stuff. If it's heavily fragranced, don't do that, because again, you can irritate. If your esthetician gave you a post-wax oil or moisturizer, that would be fine. But try to avoid anything that has too much fragrance in it, because that can also irritate the skin as well. So those are some post-wax instructions. There's also some at-home aftercare that I want you to really consider. One of those is, again, wearing those breathable cotton underwear for the rest of the day, if possible. Again, you just don't want to be sweating a lot, and you want the skin to breathe. The other thing is you just want to keep that area really clean and as dry as possible as well. That's why we don't want you working out, because the sweat can actually cause little beading, or the skin can start to bubble. And so, you want to avoid that as much as possible. And I would suggest, to prevent the ingrowns from happening, 4 to 5 days afterwards, exfoliating really gently is also recommended. So that can also be part of your aftercare as well.
So I know that ingrown hairs is what I mean by ingrowns. It can be a really big concern. You did mention a little bit about ingrowns, but do you have any other tips for how to prevent those from happening?
Yes, I do have a few more suggestions to prevent those ingrowns. One is consistently exfoliating. So I mentioned 4 to 5 days after, but just every time you're in the shower, even if it's just a washcloth or a loofah sponge, just gently exfoliating that area really, really helps. Because the reason you're getting an ingrown is because either because of friction and then inflammation and then skin buildup over the pores. And so now you've got a clogged pore. The pores is closed off. Then it has nowhere to go except to like turn around and go back down. And then that becomes painful. So you want to consistently exfoliate. That's really going to be helpful. Hydration also does help with preventing ingrown hair. And you also want to avoid shaving between appointments. It's best to do a maintenance every 4 to 6 weeks and don't shave. I mean, I know sometimes some people are like right at the cutoff and maybe they have an event and they're not going to see their esthetician for another week. Just hang in there, you guys, because what you're going to find is the more often, the more consistent you are with your appointments, the thinner the hair is going to grow back, the slower the hair is going to grow back, and you'll notice you'll have less and less ingrowns as well. So maintaining that 4 to 6 week maintenance appointments is really, really helpful.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was really helpful. And I hope that for all of you who've been wondering whether or not Brazilian waxing is something you want to try, or if you've tried it before and maybe had a bad experience, but you're thinking about trying it again, hopefully you feel more prepared now and all of your questions were answered. And of course, we love answering your questions. So even if you ask the same question 100 times, we will always try to answer it 101 times. Okay, well, thanks again for hanging out with us. I'm Velia.
I'm Monina.
And until next time,
Keep experimenting with your beauty routine. Take one for the team.
what am I even saying?
Hold on.
That's the wrong question.
She flipped it.
Oh, I did!
Like, oopsie, oopsie. I could be a bluebird.
Oh my God.
They do,
But not yet. Hold on a second. Start that over because you're saying a lot.
No.
Is it an important tip?
No.
Okay.
We're done.
Okay, we're done.
Keep experimenting with your beauty routine.
Did you say booty routine? That's kind of
No, I said
appropriate, actually.
beauty.
Okay, take that moment to fix the bangs.
Do we need a mascara?
No.
Jen knows.
Did I give you like a weird
Jen
look?
knows now.